Let's talk about that weird feeling we've all had, but most of us don't really understand. That strange, tingling numbness when your hand falls asleep. We're going to break down the surprisingly simple mechanics behind this really common problem.
You know the feeling, right? You wake up in the middle of the night, or maybe you've been typing for a bit too long, and boom, your hand feels like it's buzzing with static. What is actually going on inside your wrist to make that happen?
Okay, so to really get this, we first have to understand the setup. We're going to use a simple analogy here to build a picture of what's going on piece by piece.
All right, I want you to picture a small tunnel running through your wrist. Now, the most important thing about this tunnel is that its walls are totally rigid. They're hard, they don't give. That means the space inside is fixed. It cannot stretch or expand no matter what. Okay, now, let's run some cables through this tunnel. The first batch is a set of 9 thick, really strong workhorse cables. Their whole job is about power and movement. Think of them as being built for heavy lifting and doing the same thing over and over again. And running right alongside those 9 tough cables is one last really important piece, a single delicate data cable. This one isn't for pulling or doing heavy work. Nope, its job is to send super sensitive information and really precise commands. It's way softer and much more fragile than its 9 neighbors.
So, let's connect our little analogy to your actual body. This rigid tunnel, it's a real thing. It's called the carpal tunnel. It's formed by the bones of your wrist on the bottom and sides, and this really tough strap called a ligament right on top. And just like our model, it's a fixed space. It does not expand.
So here's the big reveal. Let's put it all together. The rigid tunnel is the carpal tunnel. Those 9 workhorse cables, those are your flexor tendons. They're what lets you bend your fingers and make a fist. And that one delicate data cable, that's your median nerve. It's responsible for carrying all the feeling from your hand and giving the commands to your thumb muscles. That's 10 things all packed into one very, very tight space.
So you've got this perfectly designed but really crowded pathway. What happens when things start to go a little bit wrong? Well, the problem starts when this already tight space gets even more crowded. So what can cause all this crowding? Well, a whole bunch of things, actually. The protective coverings around those 9 tendons can get inflamed and swell up. You might just be retaining fluid, which, you guessed it, increases the volume inside the tunnel. Even just making the same wrist movements over and over can cause irritation. All of these things are basically trying to cram more stuff into a box that just can't get any bigger.
And this sets off a nasty little chain reaction. First, for whatever reason, the stuff inside the tunnel starts to swell. That immediately jacks up the pressure inside that tiny space. And because the tunnel's walls are rigid, there's nowhere for that pressure to go. So what happens when you squeeze a bunch of tough cables and one really soft one? Yeah, the soft one gets crushed. The median nerve takes the hit.
And when that delicate data cable, the median nerve, gets squeezed, the signals it's supposed to be carrying start to fail. The very first thing you'll notice is a problem with the information coming from your hand to your brain. The squeeze basically corrupts the data stream. So instead of getting clear signals for touch and temperature, your brain just gets static. And that static is what you feel as numbness, tingling, or that classic pins and needles sensation. And notice, it's very specific. It only affects the parts of the hand that the median nerve is responsible for.
But here's a really fascinating and super important clue. In the middle of all this numbness and tingling, there's one specific spot that's almost always totally fine. The very center of your palm.
So how can that be? If the main nerve going to your hand is getting squeezed back in your wrist, why would the palm feel perfectly okay? It kind of seems like it shouldn't be possible.
Well, the answer is just an awesome little quirk of our anatomy. It turns out, a small branch of that median nerve, the one that handles feeling in your palm, does something very clever. It splits off before the main nerve even enters the carpal tunnel, and it travels right on top of it, completely avoiding the squeeze zone. It's a perfect example of how specific this problem is to just that one little tunnel.
But sensation, that's only half the story. That delicate data cable also sends commands out from the brain to your muscles, and that's where we see the second kind of signal failure. See, when the median nerve gets compressed, the commands it sends to the powerful muscles in your thumb become weak and garbled. This leads to a loss of strength, of dexterity. You might suddenly find it hard to do simple things like buttoning a shirt or picking up a coin. In really severe, long-term cases, the muscles at the base of the thumb can actually start to shrink away because they're not getting the right signals.
So, to wrap it all up, carpal tunnel syndrome really has two different faces, and they're both caused by the exact same plumbing problem in the wrist. You've got the sensory issue, the numbness and tingling from messed up incoming data, and you've got the motor issue, the weakness and loss of grip from faulty outgoing commands.
It's really a powerful reminder of how our body's amazing design relies on everything having just enough room to work. A couple of millimeters of swelling in a critical bottleneck can cause huge problems. It really makes you wonder, if a simple plumbing issue in the wrist can mess up our ability to feel and to act, what other little design flaws are hiding in plain sight inside our own bodies?